Christine. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is Working Healthier in a Hybrid Work Environment. My colleagues and I are from Michigan Rehabilitation Services, which is part of the state of Michigan's Department of Economic Opportunity. I'm going to have the presenters introduce themselves. So Amy.
Thanks, Christine. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amy Hayes, and I'm an occupational therapist with Michigan Rehabilitation Services. And I'm so happy that you're joining us today. I am a white female with blue eyes and blondish hair. I'm wearing a burgundy shirt, and thank you.
And hi, my name is Angela Blanchard. I'm also an occupational therapist with Michigan Rehab Services Business Network Division. We like to practice what we preach. So following our accessible introductions, I am a white female. I have blonde hair, green eyes, and I'm wearing a gray sweater. Now over to Christine.
This is Christine. Thank you. I am also an occupational therapy consultant with MRS. I'm a white female with brown hair and brown eyes. I'm wearing a red sweater today, and I have the MRS blue virtual background behind me. We also want to give a quick shout out to Bethany and Katie, who are our interpreters today. They are pinned, so you will be able to see them throughout the event. And thank you for helping us make everything accessible. We also have Tyler Gross, who is part of our team, and he is helping with polls and running the slideshow. And so we welcome you. Thank you so much. Next slide. Just a quick review of housekeeping and Zoom basics, which is probably not basic for us anymore. Today we have a Q&A feature, so please utilize that to interact and ask questions. We're hoping that we have time for a live Q&A at the end. And then we will also be using polls throughout our presentation. So those will pop up as Tyler launches them as we go along. If you also need closed captioning, there is a CC icon on your Zoom menu. Go ahead and click that and you can select show subtitles. And then there's also the link to Zoom Help Center. And sometimes it just helps to log off and log back in. Next slide. All right, so what are our objectives today? What are we doing? Well, we're going to try and define a hybrid work environment. We're going to talk about the benefits and the challenges of being a hybrid worker. We're going to identify proper home office ergonomics, what that looks like, and give you some creative solutions so you can actually implement that at home. And then we're also going to learn how to thrive in this environment. Next slide. So hybrid working has always existed, but its prevalence has been turbocharged, obviously, by COVID-19 and our remote work experiences. Although there's not a definitive definition yet, at its core, it is an arrangement for an individual employee, team, or organization to work part of the time in a workplace and part of the time remotely. So an example is often 2 days a week in the office and 3 days a week at home. So we like to think of this as a silver lining to the pandemic, that it forced this rapid and widespread adaptation for businesses to start using and implementing remote work practices. And we can assume that that would have otherwise taken years or decades to actually achieve. But because of our pandemic experience, companies are now well positioned to actually implement a hybrid work schedule more quickly. And some of businesses, some of them had that reality start in the spring of 2021. So working within a hybrid work model embraces flexibility, but it also can complicate issues such as organizing your work week and your workspaces, engagement with your coworkers, and how you actually use your office space now. Next slide. So we want to hear from you guys. The poll is going to launch with our first question, which is, are you currently working within a hybrid work schedule? So go ahead and give us the answer. Your presenters would check yes. All right, let's see what the results are. All right, so about 80% of us on the call today are working within a hybrid work schedule. Excellent. So let's go to our next question. So the next question is going to be, if yes, how satisfied are you with working within this hybrid work schedule? Very satisfied, satisfied, neutral, or not satisfied? Let's see your thoughts on that. Drum roll, please. Excellent. Oh, good. Very satisfied. We like to hear that. So this information is very relevant for you guys. All right, let's go to the next slide and continue on. Where are we? What is going on? I swear I've said that a lot over the last 2 years. So what are the current surveys telling us? Well, Crain's Detroit Business in March of 2021 stated that a third of businesses that they surveyed responded that at least half of their workers will have the option to continue to work within a hybrid work environment. And most of those businesses, about 70% of them, also said that they would be maintaining their office spaces. According to Gallup research that was published in May of 2021, 51% of American workers were working remotely. However, if you break that down by job type, white collar versus blue collar, the stat changed, with white collar workers being at 72% and blue collar workers being at only 14% being able to work remotely. So you have that discrepancy there. Also in May of 2021, MIBiz gave us a few snapshots of a couple Michigan businesses. Hope Network roughly had 2/3 of their employees remaining at remote work, and Spectrum Health roughly had 1/4 of their employees remaining at home without an anticipated return to the office until 2022. And they also stated that their planned workspaces, they were going to start featuring hoteling spaces for their employees. Next slide. Okay, so the firm PwC completed the US Remote Work Survey and published that result in January of 2021. And essentially they surveyed 1,200 US office workers from a range of industries. And all of these workers had identified themselves as employed and as previously or currently working remotely. So some of them had that option even prior to COVID. The survey also surveyed 133 US executives, and all respondents were from public or private companies. And the main finding that was found was based on this question: how successful would you say the shift to remote work has been because of COVID-19? And essentially the employers were the ones that found this the most successful, stating 83% to employees stating 71% success. So hopefully that means remote work is here to stay. Let's go to the next slide. And here's some more findings from PwC. What else did they tell us? Well, our productivity actually improved over time, right? It actually increased ratings from productivity from June of 2020 to December of 2020. And it was the employers who were more likely to say that performance had increased and improved over or under remote work. What else did this survey tell us? Well, it told us that the employees want to return to the office slower than employers do. It also gave us a glimpse into how our office spaces are changing and how we view the purpose of an office. So the idea of hybrid workplaces were emerging. And this was because, according to employees, the main purpose of an office was to collaborate, to assess equipment or documents securely, to meet with clients or colleagues, and for training and career development. According to employers, all of that was also true, but also they wanted to enable the culture of the business. So essentially, this is confirming that some of our office spaces are essentially changing. There's also discussion about the balance between remote work and maintaining culture. And to that point, a third of the executives that were surveyed were of the opinion that to keep a strong culture, employees should be in the office about 3 days a week. The last finding we're going to talk about from the study was that, or the survey, excuse me, was that the least experienced workers needed the office the most. So specifically, these were employees who had professional experience of 0 to 5 years. Only 30% of them wanted to work remotely more than 1 day a week. And they stated that they felt less productive on the days that they were working remotely. So this kind of tells us that there is some concern about development opportunities for our younger employees, and that the subtle and implicit training that we receive from coworkers and managers is important still. Next slide. So we know that the hybrid schedule is popular because of its flexibility, and it allows us to control our days. And at its best, there needs to be a match of the tasks that you complete to the environment that you're in. So on the screen, you see some questions and tips that have been provided and encouraged to managers to help their employees identify how they work best. But for our purposes today, I think it's good to start asking ourselves these questions, right? So that we know the answers that we need, and we can then advocate for ourselves. So some examples of these questions could be, where do you feel the most productive? Do you feel the most productive at the office, in a third space, which is identified as a coffee shop or a library, or do you feel most productive at home? Also, which tasks do you feel the most productive to complete at home versus the office? Another question could be, what work schedule best supports your overall well-being? And what tools do you need to perform your job well? And considering the fact that that could be different for home and office. Next slide. Okay, so when in office, what do employees need? How can we be supported? So essentially, it's a balance of keeping each other safe and having the opportunity for face-to-face interactions. Clean, safe workstations for mobile workers, right? Being able to come into the office, plug in immersive video conferencing, because I think we know virtual meetings aren't going away. We want touchless and contactless services. And we want an environment that establishes the culture and gives us lots of opportunities for interactions of a formal or informal nature with our colleagues. Next slide. So what are the benefits of a hybrid work environment? Increased productivity. It has been confirmed. A hybrid work model offers flexibility, which empowers employees to work on their strengths and in turn produces better results. A culture that views remote work as a positive can help teams and employees find a good balance to their work and life by helping them set the setting that helps them focus the best. Improved employee satisfaction and culture. Again, autonomy is often correlated to an employee's need and feeling of satisfaction. So when you have autonomy and more decision-making, that increases employee satisfaction. We are from MRS, so of course we're going to bold the fact that a benefit is building a disability inclusive workplace. For many individuals who have an invisible disability, the remote work era prompted by COVID has changed their lives for the better. There's lower stress and anxiety, and they have an increased ability to manage their disability at home. More possibilities for continuous learning. I don't know about you guys, but I have been able to attend some conferences that normally I wouldn't be able to because of travel. So hopefully that trend increases. And then also better collaboration in work relationships. So there's so many virtual meetings. There's a lot of chat. there's emojis and us loving people's dialogue, right? So that working together has helped individuals better understand each other and strengthen relationships and improve communication within teams. And maybe because of COVID, we have become more vulnerable with our coworkers, and that ultimately has led to stronger teams that produce better outcomes. Next slide. So more benefits, improved mental health. Hybrid work enables each employee to fit their work and life together in the best way possible, which can reduce stress and prevent burnout. Less commute, less eating out. We're saving some money, which is always awesome. Flexibility with a work and life balance. Think of it this way. We have often had work leak into our life. Now the tables have turned and life is leaking into our work. So you're at home, it's beautiful weather, take the walk because you don't have a commute today. You can finish your work later. Some of us are more physically comfortable at home. We have sweatpants and our pets and our favorite coffee mug, right? Makes us happier. And often some of us are not alone as often. We have family or friends or neighbors coming in and out or in our community on our breaks. And so ultimately that is making us a little bit happier because of more balance. Next slide. So what are the challenges of a hybrid work environment? We can't wear sweatpants 5 days a week. No, it's fairness and inclusivity. Can an organization offer a hybrid arrangement to everyone on the team? And how can that be implemented? If you think of the contrast between a white collar worker and a blue collar worker, or even for us at MRS, some of our site managers and general office assistants have to go in, right? Somebody has to check the mail, where some of us specialists and counselors have more of an encouragement phase at this point where we don't have to go into the office. There's challenges to collaboration and innovation. Sometimes you can't do a project over Zoom. It just doesn't work as well. And you can't foster those subtle and implicit conversations and relationships that happen in the office, or read someone's nonverbals as well. Inequality, not everyone has a space for a home office or appropriate internet, or a well-behaved dog that doesn't bark during a presentation. And then also business culture. And going back to that survey, again, that was a concern for employers, how to maintain business culture. So a fully remote work environment might reduce human interactions, and that could lead to isolation. So that is something that could be a challenge. Okay, next slide. And we are going to launch our next poll. So what is your most valued benefit to your hybrid work schedule? Saving gas commute time, a relaxed dress code at home, increased productivity, flexibility of schedule, and improved health, either mental or physical. Okay, survey says, yes, improved health. That's good news. All right, one last interaction for now. Let's go to poll question number 4. This one is, what is your biggest obstacle with a hybrid work schedule? Collaboration with your coworkers, inclusivity, ergonomics, or technology? All right, And our results are, ooh, well, it's about 30% for each. So collaboration, ergonomics, and technology are our biggest challenges, which is great because Angie's up next and she's going to start talking about ergonomics. So this is perfect timing for you guys.
Well, thank you so much, Christine, for that information. And yes, I was looking at that poll thinking, is anybody going to say ergonomics? I'm so glad you said that because that's the next part of our presentation here. So when the lockdown initially happened, so many of us had little to no time to set up our home office, if we even had a space designated for a home office. So now we're going into a year and a half later. Somebody said to me, we're going into our junior year of the pandemic. That just hit me. But we've had more time now to set up a better office in terms of ergonomics. And so if you do report better health, improved mental health, physical health, perhaps that tells me that you have been changing positions or going for walks, getting fresh air. All of those things are very important. But it's good to know, or it's important to know, I should say, that technology, we've become so reliant on our technology that sometimes we may be working even longer or not putting in breaks where we should. We get so caught up in our work sometimes that we're actually putting in even more time, and screen time has increased. So it's really important to remember to take those breaks. Next slide. So why is home ergonomics important? Well, it's the same reason that office ergonomics are important. If you found yourself in those early days working from your bed or sitting on the floor with all your papers around you, maybe on the couch, you may have noticed that over time we can develop those aches and pains, strains. Those are from what we call compensatory postures. Maybe we're hunched over or we're misaligned in terms of our spine and how it should be. Perhaps you've developed maybe tendonitis or hopefully not, but carpal tunnel from contact stress of the wrist on a hard surface. So those are the types of things that we see, back injuries, maybe flaring up, old injuries. Those are the types of things we see from somebody who's been in a compensatory posture for a prolonged period of time. So it's very important to stay healthy, especially during these times. So your work from home experience, it does not need to include those extra aches and pains. And we're going to talk about why that's important and how to prevent that. Next slide. So take a look at the gentleman pictured on the left there. If you've ever found yourself working from that posture, oh gosh, I see it all the time in the office. I've done it myself. And what we've found is that actually when the spine is out of alignment, there's disruptions between the signal from the brain to the spinal cord. Well, what does that mean down the road? Many in the medical community are now saying that some diagnoses such as arthritis, Alzheimer's, even dementia and Parkinson's disease can be linked to spinal cord compression at the back or contact stress. And so we want to just emphasize how important that is. Next slide. But we don't want to talk about all, doom and gloom here. So on the brighter side, when you do get up and you do stretch and increase your physical activity, here are some of the benefits. Improved thinking and cognition. Remember that brain and spinal cord connection. Reduce short-term feelings of anxiety. Keeping your thinking, learning, and judgment skills sharp as you age. Who doesn't want to do that? And reducing your risk of depression, helping you sleep better. It's very important to get up and stretch. Next slide. There's a few more benefits here. Weight management, strengthening the bones and muscles, improving balance, and just living longer, but not only longer, with an improved quality of life. Next slide. So what are the general principles of ergonomics? Now take a look at that picture there on the right. We'll talk about the rule of 90s or 90 degrees. Check out his ankles, they're at 90 degrees. The knees are at 90 degrees. Also the hips and the elbows. The forearms are parallel to the thighs and the thighs are parallel to the floor. So the height of that work surface is very important. That's sometimes the biggest obstacle, is the height of that desk. A lot of people think that it's the chair, and that certainly is a barrier too, but the chair can be right. And if the height of the desk is off, the person is still out of alignment. So the height of the work surface should allow you to work without reaching or bending. Even take note of shallow bending from the thoracic spine or mid back as you kind of hunch over your keyboard. Remember to relax the shoulders and bring the back all the way into the chair. Arrange commonly used items such as your phone, documents, put them within easy reach so you're not leaning or bending to reach for these items. Position your monitor directly in front of you. The top of that screen should be about at eye level. If you wear bifocals, you might lower it a little bit so you can look out of the bottom of your glasses. But a good rule of thumb is that it should be directly in front of you and about an arm's length distance. That depends on the screen size. If you have a huge screen, you might move it backwards a little bit. But just remember these general rules of thumb for ergonomics. Again, your forearm should be parallel to the floor, and elbows should be at approximately 90 degrees. Relax those upper arms. Notice if you're carrying tension in your shoulders and upper back, and relax those shoulders. And the top of your keyboard should be level with the height of your elbow. And we're going to get into a little more detail there. Next slide. So position that keyboard so it's flat. Sometimes they come with little feet that you can flip up, but it's better to have them flat so that you're typing either at a neutral position or slightly downhill. But just remember not to type uphill and extend those wrists. That can put that pressure on the area where people develop carpal tunnel frequently. Use a wrist rest so you're not having an issue with contact stress at the wrist. And keep those wrists in a relaxed position. Remember to rest your eyes periodically. Again, we get so focused on these screens and on work that sometimes we're staring at that screen for hours at a time. But if you look at a object in the distance about 20 feet away, that can kind of reset the focus and the eyes to avoid eye strain, dry eyes, fatigue, those types of things. And then adjust the height of your seat so that your feet are resting firmly on the floor or on a footrest. If you feel that your feet are not properly supported, or if you're a more petite person like myself that always seems to be dangling off the edge of the chair, remember to adjust that seat and use a footrest under you to kind of help with that discrepancy between the height of the desk and the height of your chair, so that you're positioned again like that figure on the right. Next slide. We talked a little bit now about why posture matters, but sitting hunched over with that tiny laptop on your desk or working on the couch for 8 hours a day can just be bad news for your neck, your back, and your wrists. And those body parts will certainly come back and tell you about it. So sometimes we see neck strain and pain from either looking up, extending the neck, or flexing the neck. By looking at a screen that's too high or too low. Low back pain. When we sit on the edge of the chair, we're using all those small muscles in our back rather than our core to support us. But when you use that backrest and position your hips all the way back in the chair, you can use those core muscles and your back can get a little bit of a rest. Carpal tunnel syndrome, again, a very common musculoskeletal injury that develops with frequent typing or frequent hand use. And that can, what can contribute to that is extending those wrists. It's hard to say exactly what causes it because there's a lot of things that can contribute to carpal tunnel syndrome, but keeping those wrists neutral, again, is very important. Don't ignore that pain and don't ignore your discomfort. It's your body telling you something is wrong. Next slide. So take a look again at the incorrect posture where the person is hunched over versus seated appropriately with an appropriate height keyboard tray and desk and chair. And what this does is it actually increases your productivity. If you're in pain, it's hard to focus on work. It increases concentration, reduces that pain and discomfort we might feel at the end of a long day, or by Thursday, if If you feel like you're 120 years old, it could be your posture. It improves the mood and satisfaction, improves even your digestive health, facilitates deeper diaphragmatic breathing, increases energy, and you look good and feel confident with your head up and your shoulders back. Next slide. So how do you know what height work surface is correct for you? And again, it's different for everybody, but what you do is take your chair, sit in your chair with the rule of 90s in play. So you're comfortable, feet are flat on the ground or on a footrest, thighs are parallel, and take a tape measure and measure from the floor to the top of the hands or the fingertips. Now that is your appropriate writing surface or desk height. The keyboard surface, this is why we have keyboard trays frequently, is because the keyboard should be about 1 to 2 inches below that, again, so those wrists are neutral as you're typing. Next slide. Let's talk about the advantages of a footrest. It does encourage the user to, again, position their hips all the way back in the chair, use the depth of your seat pan, get good thigh, the lower extremity support, low back support, upper back support if you have a higher back chair. And again, if the desk is too high, and when they standardized desks, it was mostly for when men were in the workforce. So frequently ladies or people who are not 5'9", 5'10" might have a desk that's too high. So what you can do is use that footrest as kind of a cheater to reduce that discrepancy. If you have a fixed height desk and you can't raise or lower it, use the footrest and then elevate your chair maybe just an inch or two to compensate there. But as long as the feet are still flat on that footrest surface, you're in business. So if you don't have access to a footrest immediately, try using a tote, maybe that's a couple of inches tall, or create a footrest from a shoebox. Use one of those Amazon boxes you had delivered to your house when shopping during the pandemic, something like that. That can also help. Just make sure it's not too high. If you look at that picture on the right, his knees are above his hips. So remember that rule of 90s there, that's too high. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about healthy standing posture. So frequently, if you're sitting too long, it doesn't even matter what chair you're sitting in. It can be very uncomfortable if you just sit for several hours without getting up. So if you are going to be changing positions throughout the day, and we do recommend that, remember that the height of your work surface when standing should also be appropriate. Remember that rule of 90s at the elbows. The height of the desk, again, should be approximately high enough so that you can type with your elbows at 90 degrees. And forearms, again, should be parallel to the floor. Relax those upper back muscles, neck, relax the wrists, and make sure that those wrists are in a neutral position. It's no different than when you're sitting. Again, the distance between your eyes and the monitor should be about an arm's length away. And to ensure that the neck is neutral and the head postures are maintained, if you wear glasses, you may lower the screen slightly to look out of the bottom of your glasses. Next slide. If you are someone that gets caught up in your work, remember just to set a timer, write a sticky note, stick it on your monitor, and remember to get up once an hour, even if it's just for 5-10 minutes. Take that laptop into the kitchen and work at the kitchen counter for 10-15 minutes. Maybe take a standing meeting on the phone, or if you have a webinar, something that's going to require you to sit for a long period of time, just remember to get up and, walk around, and you can still listen to those meetings if you just take a little bit of a 5 or 10 minute stretch break. Next slide. And it's not just us telling you to change positions. There are studies out there that have found that 87% of people felt more energized, 3/4 of people felt healthier overall, and 2/3 felt more productive. And you can find out more at juststand.org. So it's a pretty remarkable study there. And now I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Amy.
All right, thank you so much, Angie. That was wonderful information on ergonomic principles. So this slide just makes me laugh. Working from home, what could go wrong? Well, a lot could go wrong, right? We remember this in the beginning, and we may still have a few things, but there are some challenges. And we're going to go through some home examples and what could go wrong, and what are some things around the house that you might be able to utilize to help those situations. Some of the challenges included shared workspace or kids being home, dogs barking during an important phone call or presentation, which I'm hoping mine does not. But there's a lot of things that can come up, and we do have our challenges. So on the next slide, most of us had to transition to that kitchen table or dining room table, and that had some challenges. Often we were seated at a basic, hard kitchen chair, really not much support. And then also the chair was probably too low and the desk was a little bit too high, which can create some of that wrist tension because they're resting on that sharp edge, as Angie was talking about. So what you can do to help remedy this is maybe clamping on an external keyboard with a keyboard tray and mouse. And remember, you want to have the keyboard and the mouse at the same level. Maybe adding a cushion to your seat, and then maybe a adjustable lumbar support that has adjustable straps, or even a rolled up towel about 3 or 4 inches in diameter can help with that chair. Okay, the next slide will show an ideal setup, and that's using a laptop riser, an external laptop riser, and then plugging in an external keyboard and mouse or trackball. You can see immediately how much higher now the viewing screen of the monitor is, and it just promotes that more upright posture. So let me show you what you can use at home on the next slide. So obviously in the office, we typically have a monitor riser, or we have a monitor or two plugged in, but we don't always have that at home. So to raise the level of your monitor, you can use a stack of books, maybe a sturdy shoebox. Like Angie said, those Amazon boxes are plentiful, right? But just make sure it's sturdy. And we found this one YouTube video of a gentleman making a laptop stand out of a shoebox, and it's pretty creative and sturdy. So we can put that link in an email to you later, but that's a YouTube one. So you have to be creative during these times. As far as the chair, like I said, in the office, typically we have a pretty supportive chair with adjustability, but at home we don't always have that. So again, you're going to want to try using a towel to add that lumbar support. I actually ordered what's called a tush cush. It's a cushion to go on your chair to give you a little bit more support. Some people have been able to take chairs home if they're working from home all the time, or maybe there were extra task chairs in the office that they could use for their hybrid schedule. Or some people have had to invest. But as far as the employer side, that's something that I would definitely encourage you to talk to your employer or your manager about, as far as obtaining chairs and ergonomic equipment for home. So keyboard ideas, you do not want to do what's on the picture to the left. There's that sharp edge that we were talking about. It really puts a lot of pressure into your forearm and will cause numbness and possibly nerve damage over time. So you can try this instead. On the right, there's a little beanbag, long stuffed animal. You can try putting rice into a baggie and into a tall sock. There's a lot of do-it-yourself YouTube videos on how to create wrist rests. You can use rice, black beans, also like the plastic pellets that are at the craft stores to make a wrist rest. And wrist rests are really portable. So if you're that hybrid worker, that's something that you could easily put in a bag or take back and forth, or invest in one for home. Next slide, please. So as far as the kitchen counter as a standing workstation, maybe for brief intermittent periods, it's fine, but not for long term. What can go wrong is, as you can see, the gentleman on the left, he's looking down quite a bit. He is getting a little bit of pressure on those forearms, again, with that contact stress. But for any sustained amount of time, they're going to develop some of that neck pain, and it just kind of creates that rounded shoulder posturing. At work, we often have like the Ergotron or Varidesk, but at home, no, me neither. So the next slide, with the monitor that's on the left, the viewing height is a good, probably pretty good height for most, but the keying position is at that same height. So it's probably much too high and probably raising or elevating those shoulders. And then the mouse is on the desk, which creates a really excessive reach and some wrist extension. So over time, that would not be the best solution, but it's creative. And then the picture on the right is also creative, but doesn't look very sturdy. You have the two-legged ironing board, and then it's on a soft surface of a bed. So not ideal. Again, if you are set up poorly, that will lead to pain and fatigue, and you don't want an unstable work surface. So next slide, please. So in the office, obviously, the picture on the left, often we can stand up to work with those Ergotrons, or we may have a desk that's a standing height and then our computer height is seated. But again, at home, maybe you could try using some binders to hold up a flat surface like the one that's pictured on the right. Get crafty with some wood, but make sure you're making it sturdy. The more sturdy, the more safer it's going to be to have that standing workstation. And it's really important to try to implement that sit stand at office as well as at home. So as far as phone calls, you want to try to be hands-free as much as possible. Try to use the speaker setting on your device when possible. Use a microphone headset or earbuds for those confidential conversations, especially when you're at home. And you want to avoid holding your phone to your ear for long periods of times. When you're holding it like this, cradling that phone, it elongates the muscles on one side and shortens them on the other. And over time, you're going to feel that pain, discomfort, fatigue. All right, so stretching. Why do we want to stretch? We want to stretch because it increases our blood flow, reduces the tension and reduces the muscle fatigue that we're feeling. It can help prevent injuries, maintain range of motion of our joints, and it just feels good. It's nice to have that mental and emotional break to stretch. It feels good. Our fur babies always do it the right way. They always stretch before they get up, and they stretch throughout the day. So we can learn from them. If you haven't stretched, so we've been seated, gosh, at least 40 minutes now as I'm looking at my clock. Feel free to stand up for a minute while I keep going through the presentation. Change your position a little bit. So in summary, here's what you can do. You want to sit and stand properly with good posture. Know how to adjust your chair. If your chair adjusts, don't be afraid to use those levers and play around with them. Don't pound your keys and don't grip your mouse too much. Often we have that grip on that mouse, which over time can lead to some tendonitis or issues. So make sure you keep the palm open, a little bit more relaxed. Like we said, take those mini stretch breaks throughout the day. If you are having to reach, lift, carry, push or pull, make sure you're practicing good body mechanics. Eat healthy, drink lots of water. The water gets you up to the restroom to stretch and change your position. And then lastly, we have an ergonomic chest list. It's a self-assessment, and it's a interactive tool that you can use periodically to make sure you're using good ergonomics, whether in the home or at the office, and that's at computingcomfort.org. And we'll provide that link in an email as well. And it only takes about 5 minutes, and it gives you immediate feedback. So next, I'm going to talk about how to thrive in a hybrid work environment. I'm actually going to remove my video for a minute. I have lots of great notes, and I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. So I'm going to go through 10 tips on that. The first one is know thyself, because not every employer is shifting to a hybrid work environment. You may be tempted to take the first hybrid offer that comes your way, right? While you may be a fantastic culture fit for the company and the role, or it's your current employer making the offer, that doesn't always mean the hybrid schedule is a fantastic fit for you. So we advise anyone considering a hybrid schedule to reflect on when they've been the most productive at work and how they achieve that productivity. So write these things down and come up with a strategic and intentional plan for navigating a hybrid situation successfully. So knowing how, when, and why you are a successful employee will help you better choose which hybrid work environment is right for you. Number 2, prepare for technology issues. And all of us have had those for sure, especially in the beginning of this hybrid work environment. So while you won't necessarily need to be your own tech team, you'll likely need to know the basics of how to troubleshoot minor tech issues. And I'm sure we've all learned from these tech issues we've experienced. When working remotely in a hybrid arrangement, prepare to run into a few roadblocks such as internet or computer issues. Make sure you have a backup plan in an event that your tech goes haywire, such as a portable hotspot, an extra laptop battery, or know the good Wi-Fi at a local coffee shop. Know where to go in case you need it. Number 3, use the cloud. Consider moving as much of your work as possible to the cloud if the employer allows it. You may not be the only person working a hybrid schedule, which means it's possible you and your teammates are rarely, if ever, in the office at the same time. Putting everything in the cloud means every team member has access to the projects and knows what updates have happened and can see what remains to be done. The other reason to transfer your work to the cloud is that it gives you access to your files no matter where you are. For example, cloud documents are accessible from your work computer, another computer, maybe your work phone. Even if you have a laptop that goes with you to and from the office, you never know when it might break down or get left behind. Cloud access ensures you can keep working despite potential hiccups. So number 4, very important to be reachable and communicative. Thriving in a hybrid work environment involves a lot of communication, constant communication actually, and being reachable. Communication tools are a critical element of success for remote workers, and how you use these tools and communicate with others will really impact your success as a hybrid worker. For example, during your in-office days, consider posting project updates in the project management tool instead of dropping by a team member's desk to share the information. This way, everyone has the same information shared with them in the same manner at the same time, regardless if they are in the office or working remotely. The same goes with keeping in touch. Using a messaging system and setting regular times to catch up will keep others updated and everyone moving in the same direction. It's also great to know each other too, especially new coworkers. It's been a tough transition for new hires that have transitioned to this hybrid work and getting to know people. So make sure you're reaching out. And number 5, share a calendar. Even if you're the only person working a hybrid schedule, create a shared calendar with your coworker so everyone knows what days you're in the office, what days you're working from home. This will help everyone stay clear about who is supposed to be where on what days, which will cut down on any confusion and scheduling snafus. All right, the next slide goes through the last 5 tips on how to thrive in a hybrid work environment. Number 6, create a hybrid workday routine. Routines are very important. Having a daily routine for work is often a crucial part of success, no matter where you work. A daily workday routine also helps you get your brain into that work mode, signaling it's time to get things done and help you stay on task. The thing about a hybrid work environment is that your routine is going to change based on what day it is, right? So some days you'll be going into the office routine, other days you'll be working remotely routine, but the 2 routines likely won't be the same. For example, on your in-office days, you may get up at a specific time so you can shower, exercise, eat breakfast before you start your commute. On your work from home days, while you still may shower, exercise, and have some breakfast before work, your commute isn't nearly as long, right? Very short, down the stairs or out to your office. So what do you do with all that extra time before you officially clock in? What you do with that time is up to you. Whether you choose to sleep in a little, start work early, maybe meditate, take an extra long walk with the dog, but try to keep the routine the same every time. This will help you get your mind into that work mode and helping you start your day on time and stay focused throughout. Okay, number 7, breaks. You want to include breaks. I can't emphasize enough how important this is. As you create your work routine, don't forget to schedule breaks. It's easy to dive into our tasks and plow through them, and in part because you're at home and away from the normal interruptions and distractions that sometimes happen in the office. However, you're also away from the casual, unscheduled breaks that happen when you go to fill your coffee, get up to run to the restroom, and end up chatting with coworkers about weekend plans. These unscheduled breaks help you be a productive employee by giving your brain a much needed rest. So include a few breaks during your day so you don't work too much and decrease your productivity. Walk around the block, meet a friend for a quick cup of coffee, or even a casual chat with your in-office counterparts. Most importantly, schedule it, write it in your planner, put it in your Outlook calendar to help make it happen. All right, number 8, setting boundaries. So along the lines of setting boundaries, don't forget to establish and stick to them. When you work fully remote environment, it's important to start and end times to your workday. These times help maintain the boundary between work time and personal time or play time, something that can be hard to do when you work and play in the same space. In a hybrid work environment, it could be tricky to keep those boundaries intact, especially as you and your employer test the hybrid work waters. If you don't set boundaries, you could find yourself working long hours every day at home, and that could in turn lead to burnout. Establishing and sticking to boundaries around your workday will help you stay balanced, focused, and productive. If you're worried about how things might look, keep track of your wins, everything you've accomplished as a hybrid worker. By focusing on your results, you'll be able to demonstrate that you're a productive and devoted employee, no matter where you are. All right, number 9, consider ergonomics, which we talked a lot about. Because you're only working from home a few days a week, you may think it's not worth it to spend the money on setting up a home office. You might think that it's fine to work at the kitchen table or a couch. However, even 1 to 2 days a week at an ergonomically incorrect workstation won't do wonders for your physical health. So spring for that proper chair, proper desk. If that's not really in your budget right now, consider working somewhere that does have a good setup, maybe like a co-working space or the library. Trust me, your back, your arms, and shoulders will thank you. All right, number 10, pack your patience. Finally, as work points out, the hybrid work environment is new for many employers. And as companies try to figure this all out and what it means for them and for you, there are bound to be a few stumbles along the way. So being patient, flexible, and understanding will be paramount to your success in a hybrid work environment. There are likely going to be some changes in how things used to operate. For example, some companies may encourage hybrid employees to use a shared desk when they are in the office rather than having a private office. Navigating these changes can definitely feel stressful and frustrating, but try to keep an open and positive mindset while remaining flexible so that it doesn't feel as overwhelming. If you are feeling overwhelmed or struggle with that executive functioning, which is a set of mental skills that include working memory, flexible thinking, and self-control. We use these skills every day to learn, work, and manage daily life. Trouble with executive function can make it hard to focus, follow directions, handle emotions, among other things. So some things that might help with this are to make a to-do list. Creating a daily list of tasks and projects can help improve the challenges of executive function disorder. And use that calendar, like I had stated. Learn how to manage your time. You may need to take notes or use reminders. And try keeping things simple. Simplify what you can. And remember to relax and breathe. Get organized and stay organized. That can really help. And then maybe use a white noise machine to help with focus and attention. So those are the 10 tips of how to thrive. And next, I just wanted to share a quick story of how MSU is thriving actually with this hybrid work schedule. We had the privilege to talk with someone from the infrastructure, planning, and facilities department, and just wanted to share real quick some of their reported advantages, challenges, and they actually had some pretty similar results to the PwC survey that Christine had mentioned. So with the MSU, they definitely required approval for the hybrid system, and their hybrid system is 2 days remote and 3 days in the office. So we asked, how has COVID-19 impacted hybrid options? And it forced it on MSU. There was fear initially, but it forced expansion of system knowledge. And one what in particular was the Microsoft Teams. Most people had to learn it fast, and now they really like it. They use it daily. So they saw that evolution and growth in skill set and perspectives. Some areas could not go remote, like skilled trades. So some difficult times and challenges to the hybrid schedule was this was really the first time that they were offering it. And they had to adapt to new business operations, navigating equity and equality. Managing a remote team was difficult and different. And they surveyed their employees, and the things that they missed the most was missing that personal interaction. So Teams was really helpful in that, they said, where they could hear and see and still keep that collaboration going on the days that they were working from home. So the advantages, increased production, and that's what we just keep hearing over and over again, which is awesome. I think it's here to stay, that hybrid work. But the advantages employees reported were more life work integration and balance, less interruptions at work. A big thing was parking. parking difficulties down, costs decreased significantly, and employees like the sense of support and flexibility. And an administrator shared after this that her tips were just to keep engaging in lifelong learning, embrace this change, and keep equity at the top of your mind at all times. So that was nice that they shared what their experiences are. The next slide is just, it's time to thrive. Hybrid work environments are poised to be the new way to work. Start sharpening your hybrid specific skills now and enjoy workplace success no matter where you go. And I wanted to also mention that December 1st, there'll be kind of a piggyback to this. It's more the employer side of the hybrid work environment, and the Business Network Division, Michigan Rehab Services will be presenting on that, along with more from Michigan State University, Henry Ford, Workers' Comp Bureau, and the EEOC. So I wanted to mention that you can learn more about what the employer side is saying. The next slide is just a little bit more about us, Business Network Division, in our infrastructure. So we are statewide, and we are a resource to you across the state. We have licensed and nationally certified rehabilitation counselors. We have registered and licensed occupational therapists and occupational safety advisors on staff. And many of us are certified in the business solutions professionals. And lastly, our sister agency within MRS, BSBP, which is Business Services for Blind Persons, they have vision rehabilitation therapists as well. So what are some of the next steps with MRS? What can we assist with? We can assist with those ergonomic evaluations, whether it be in the home or in the office setting. We can assist with job descriptions, making sure that they're functional and up to date. And we can assist the employer in creating an inclusive interview process, along with talent recruitment and those retention services, making sure that that valued worker is staying on the job. So we have a slew of resources for you. There's some general resources from Michigan Rehab Services, Employer Assistance and Resource Network, the Job Accommodation Network, Partnership on Employment and Accessible Technology, and the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. We will provide all these in a follow-up email. The next slide shows resources for the hybrid work specific for employers and employees. We used a lot of this information for this presentation today, so there's a lot of good links and resources there. And lastly is the ergonomic resources. So there's a variety there. We have that computingcomfort.org, that interactive tool that you can look at your workstation on, but we will share those with you because there's a lot there to offer. So we are just at 2:02 I have, or 2:03. If you have time, we can try to answer a few more questions in our Q&A. We have been responding to some. Is there anything that we need to help out with right now with that, Tyler? I can go to the Q&A.
I think the questions were pretty well addressed in the Q&A. If anyone wants to open the Q&A panel and take a look at those, feel free, but I don't think there's anything you need to address now.
All right, great. Next slide is the last slide. So I just want to thank all of you for attending. There will be a survey also that we would love to have your feedback. We will put that in the Q&A as a link and also in a follow-up email. So have a great afternoon. Stay healthy and stay safe. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.